Hey, folks. Um, kind of wanted to share this story from my childhood. Um, Back in 1980, I was 11 years old, and I had dreams of. My dream was as a young boy, I wanted to play in the NFL. I wanted to become an Oakland Raider, and as you can tell, I'm 6 feet tall. I have the height, I guess, but I'm like 143 pounds. So needless to say, I never made the NFL. um, but as a boy, young boy, I had those dreams, and ended up joining the local Pop Warner football team in Northern California. And we came from a very small. We were in a very very small town. Our coach, there was a rumor going around that our coach, Greg Onesi, was an ex-Marine drill sergeant, and it was very easy to believe that rumor. I don't know if it was a rumor or more than a rumor, because he killed us in practice. So he did things. He made 30, 11-year-old kids do things that sometimes you'd question: is this right? Is this right for small kids to go through this almost torture in practice? He just killed us. It was borderline abusive, but he, for the first time in the history of this particular team, he took us all the way to Los Angeles. We won the Northern Championship, Northern California, in our division. I don't know how, by the grace of God. I mean, we were a very, very small town from the foothills north of Sacramento, and we went to all the way to the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and played those teams down there, and those boys meant business. We kind of rolled over everybody in the regular season in our area, but once we started going to the championship games in the Bay Area, boy, we came up against insurmountable odds. I don't know how we beat these teams, but we did. And then we went to Los Angeles for the state championship and got our asses handed to us by the Anaheim Bears. But we still got to go to Disneyland. What was the promise? He made an announcement before one of our final championship games in Northern California that you win this game, you win these next two games, we go to Los Angeles. And we go to Los Angeles, you guys go to Disneyland. He paid for everything, gave us pocket money. We lost down there, but we still got to go to Disneyland the next day. He said, you don't have, doesn't matter what the outcome is in Los Angeles, you win these next two games up in Northern California, you go to LA, you go to Disneyland. And you tell this to 30, 11-year-old boys, it's quite an incentive. And I'll never forget the game that we won in Northern California. We won that NorCal championship against the Menlo Afferton Lions. And we were just a bunch of hicks from the sticks. I mean, I think I was the only brown kid on the whole team. It was all white kids. We're from the hills. And the Menlo Afferton Lions were, I don't think there's one white kid on their team. Most of the teams down in Bay Area, they're all black or brown, and they were athletes. I mean, when we played the Lions, they were killing us 13-0 in halftime, and we all went into the locker room at halftime, and our heads hung low. A lot of us were crying because we thought we were done. We thought we were cooked. Onesi came in the locker room and said, "Guess what, gentlemen? You're not going to Disneyland." And the whole team just started bawling their eyes out. 11-year-old kids. And I don't know how we did it. We emerged from that locker room in the second half, and we ended up getting 2 touchdowns. We beat them 14-13. I don't know how the hell we beat those kids, because they were by far some of the best athletes I've ever come up against back then. But there's one game that I wanted to share in particular, and My mother, at the time, my mother had just gone through a divorce with her second husband, the second alcoholic in her life. And so I was, back in 1980, being the child of a single parent, it wasn't like today. I mean, but 75% of parents are single parents now. Is so normal now. But 1980, there was, I was probably one of the only kids that had a single parent that I can really remember. And at that time, so it was just me and my mother. Um, and there was a game, a home game, that I knew my uncle Norm was showing up to. And my uncle Norm he was a hard son of a bitch. He was a Vietnam veteran. He's killed people. He's got that look in his eye. Any man who's ever killed another man, whether it be a war or not, has a look in his eye. Maybe not every one of them, but he was a scary son of a bitch. This is my Uncle Norm, and he was extremely scrutinizing. He would, we'd be sitting and eating lunch somewhere in a restaurant, and he'd be, look at that fucking loser over there. Look at that guy. He was that kind of guy, and he would pick anybody apart. He'd be the first to tell you you're a piece of shit, you're worthless. So when he gave you kudos, you really knew, like, wow. And he watched me pitch a little league game once. He traveled 50 miles to come see my little league game, and he watched me pitch. And I think a few weeks later, I was having dinner at his place. And like I said, if he says something good about anybody, he means it, because he'll be, like I said, he'll be the first to tell you you're a worthless piece of shit. And he sat at the dinner table, and he brought up the game, watching me pitch, and he looked at me. And, well, let me back up a little bit. One time I asked him, I said, hey, Uncle Norm, tell me a Vietnam story. Being Asian and stuff like that. He was white. He married into my family. And I said, hey, Uncle Norm, tell me a Vietnam story. And he drops his steak knife and his fork on his dinner plate, and he sits back in his chair. He goes, well, I saw a kid looked exactly like you with his head blown off. I never asked him about Vietnam again. So he watched my middle league game, watched me pitch, and he used to marvel at my arm, because he had like this 1-inch crushed gravel driveway, and I used to throw the rocks off of this, kind of down into this gully, and I was able to hit his pond. He had a bass pond down a ways, and he would marvel over it. He goes, I can't believe a kid your size can hit that pond from that distance. And once again, when you're getting any kind of compliment from Uncle Norm, it means something. And he marveled over my arm, and after he watched me pitch the Little League game, a couple weeks later, he was at his place having dinner, and he goes, "You're going to pitch in the major leagues, and you're going to become a very rich man, and you're going to send me around the world." He used to tell me that all the time. So back to this particular game. We showed up to the home game. We suited up in the locker rooms, and my mind was just on the game. We spent all week practicing, and it was a big game. It was Vacaville Black. There was Vacaville Black and Vacaville Orange, and they were both very strong teams. They were some of the two strongest teams in the regular season. I don't know if this game decided whether we were going to championships or not. It was a very important game, so our heads were so into the game. It's coming up. So we're in the locker room, and our assistant coach Brent came in the locker room with a basket, this weaved basket. All right, the coaches always yelled at us, especially Brent. For some reason, the assistant coach did more yelling than anything. So Coach Brent comes in there. All right, come on, Rick, gather around. Come on, get over here. Come on. And he's got a basket, and he goes, "All right, in this basket." Our team was really run militarily. They were just really strict and hard. Lots of yelling all the time. And in this basket is a tag with your name on it. You're gonna take a tag with your name. You're gonna pin it on your jersey. Because we're gonna celebrate. It wasn't Father's Day, but it was like Dad's Day or some shit. And we're gonna pin it on. You're gonna pin it on your jersey. We get out on that field. All of your dads are going to be lined up on the 50-yard line. They're going to hold out their hands. You're going to line up. You're going to run along the dads, and you're going to slap them on their hands, like slap me 10. And then you're going to line up. You're going to find your dad, and you're going to stand in front of your dad. So all the kids are, yeah, all right, they're grabbing their, and he's passing them out, Welch, McElhern, Jones, Clark, and he's passing them out. Come on. And all the kids are excited, and they're putting on their pins on their jerseys, and everybody's having fun except for me. I'm standing there like, fuck. This is a big game that there's going to be a huge crowd out in the bleachers. I'm going to be the only fucking kid on that 50-yard line with a gap in the dads, with no dad. And if I would have known they were going to pull this shit, I would have probably would never showed up to that game. I didn't give a shit how important it was. I was mortified. I didn't know what the fuck to do, and I'm just frozen. And come on, get over here, come here, and put it. And I'm get my pen, and I got my name on it, and I pinned the son of a bitch to my fucking jersey, and I'm like, fuck, I'm fucked. I wanted to just take off running. I didn't know what the fuck to do, man. And we lined up and began our cadence and marched out onto the fucking field, out of the locker room, and went on the field. And I looked out in the field, and there's all the dads lined up on that 50-yard line. And we went up there, and we were running along, and we were slapping the dad's hands. And I heard this voice, this familiar voice going, "Come on, Jimmy, let's go." And I look up, and it was Uncle Norm. When they made the announcement to all the dads on the field, he walked down the bleachers and gathered up with the dads, and he walked out on that fucking field for me, man. He stood up for me. And and then Coach Onesi had all of us gather around on the sidelines. It was the first game he saw, and I was so proud to be a part of this team. I was so fucking proud of my uniform, and just to be I was living my dream of being a football player, and I realized, Coach Onesi said, "This is it. This is the game. This is the most important game of our season." And everybody has their hands in together. And this time it was different because all the dads were there. And I realized this is the first time that Uncle Norm heard Onesi's voice. And Onesi just looked around and said, this is the game, boys. And I turned around, I looked at Uncle Norm, and he seemed really proud of me. And we beat Vacaville Black that day and went to the championships. And I'll never forget that day.